who is this person? Who is this millionaire? Or who is this donor, this Jewish donor, that decided to pull out $2 million from Charlie Kirk? Well, we know exactly who that is. And that is Robert Sillman. Robert Sillman. Now, kind of ironic that this man's name is Shill. But here is a little bit about Robert Sillman. Now, there's been other articles stating that he was a very big mentor to Charlie Kirk. He was one of the two largest individuals that backed Charlie early on to get him to the position that he was in. Some interesting notes about Sillman, coming from Wikipedia, is the fact that Sillman sits on the boards of the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces, the Jewish Foundation for the Righteous, and the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Interesting. What is the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces? He was also described as a counter-jihad elite and high-profile financier. In and around August 2017, he funded several far-right counter-jihad activists who were appointed Sillman Fellows. Among these fellows were Laura Loomer, Raheem Kassam, and Katie Hopkins. Laura Loomer was also funded, right? Also funded by Sillman. Laura Loomer, also the one going after Charlie Kirk for platforming Tucker Carlson. Going after Charlie over his opinions on Israel more recently. Now, I bet you if we look at Laura Loomer's X account, we're going to find some interesting stuff. Let's do that. Laura Loomer, because I remember that she was one of the individuals really going after people regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination. I even believe that she was more recently in interviews about it. Let me go ahead and pull it up and verify what I'm saying here. Let's see some more recent posts by Laura Loomer. Oh, this is an interesting one. I just spoke with Congresswoman Anna Paulina, and she tells me she has received evidence that China funded one of the groups under FBI investigation for ties to Tyler Robinson's Discord activity, where he may have discussed his plans to assassinate Charlie Kirk. I'm really looking forward to the FBI Director Kash Patel releasing more information about who was inside that Discord chat. That will provide many more unanswered questions about how planned the assassination of Charlie Kirk was and who helped fund the groups connected to Tyler Robinson. So you're telling me the same person who's being funded by the Jewish donor that pulled out their support for Charlie Kirk once he started to no longer be so pro-Israel anymore. She's now saying that, oh, it's not Israel, you crazy people. It's China. Look over there. They're the ones who killed Charlie Kirk. Now watch this become the mainstream narrative. It's not Israel. It's China. Yeah, because Charlie Kirk was, completely changing his position on China at the time. Interesting. Also interesting that just an hour ago, she is shilling... for Sillman, she is shilling the movie that the other person that I talked about too being paid $6,000 to $7,000 for the post. I'm sure is also Laura Loomer, $6,000 to $7,000 per post. Dinesh D'Souza's film about October 7th. Hundreds of miles. I am streaming it because I couldn't even get tickets within 100 miles of where I live. Actually, theaters across the country are sold out tonight. Okay, I'm sure. So quite the coincidence. Oh, another post about his documentary. Oh, and she interviewed him. That's interesting. Very interesting. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the funding money from Robert Sillman. Interesting. So here is Robert Sillman in his own words talking about how he's in the fight against anti-Israel sentiment. Let's watch this video.
And then there are those who use the pen, who by their writings support those who do the actual fighting. I would like to be on the front line, wielding a sword in this battle, but that wasn't meant to be. So instead, I wield a pen. I'm a writer. Now, most of you don't know that, but for the past 20 years, I've written one book each year. Now, none of my books have made it to Amazon Top 10, and certainly not to the New York Times bestsellers list. The book that I just finished writing this year is entitled 2019. It's a checkbook. With this pen and my checkbook, I provide ammunition I wield a pen to provide ammunition to those organizations like ZOA who are on the front lines in this battle. In this battle, confronting the enemies of Israel and the Jewish people and defending them against the attacks of the Islamists who wish to destroy Israel and the radical leftists and Jew haters who seek to eliminate the Jewish people everywhere. So I want to thank you, all of you, both the fighters in this room and the people who support them. And I urge you to continue to use your pen to support the ZOA so that it can continue to fight its mission on the front lines for battling for Israel and for the Jewish people. Thank you very much.
Interesting fella. He wields a pen. He writes books. Oh, he signs checks. So he funds, he funds people like Laura Loomer and Dinesh D'Souza in order to shill for the Israeli government and pretend like they're not committing mass murder of innocent women and children. That's what he does. That's his version of fighting the good fight. Okay. Interesting fella. So now we know exactly who that individual is. So to me, it's starting to look pretty clear. It's starting to look like, if I was to summarize some of Candace Owens' findings, it's that there's a very high likelihood that the person who assassinated Charlie Kirk did not do so because he had a boyfriend that he lived with that liked to wear a tail around every day and pretend he was a girl. Looks like he didn't, some patsy, some random lone wolf shooter didn't shoot Charlie Kirk over ideology. It starts to seem a lot more like it was a very well thought out, organized, and intentionally chaotic environment used to stop Charlie Kirk from speaking out and causing a movement among young people to be pro or anti-Israel, right? To start a movement of people to speak truth, which is always what Charlie Kirk did. He spoke truth. And the truth that Charlie found wasn't convenient to his donors. Donors like Robert Sillman. Donors like Bill Ackman. It was an inconvenient truth to them that Israel was conducting these horrific mass murders, and that Charlie Kirk started to realize it. They didn't want him to cause the same movement that caused Donald Trump to get in office. And guess what? The under 30, under 35 age bracket already knows this, already believes this. Find me somebody who's not Jewish or getting paid to argue for Israel that's under 35. You can't do it. I don't know one. That's interesting. Now, the last thing that they would have wanted is Charlie Kirk, the most influential person in that age bracket, to change his position and platform Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and continue to have Dave Smith on to demolish people in debates. That's the last thing they wanted. They want everybody to play nicely with Israel and everybody to speak out against the other side. They don't want the truth coming out. They don't want the videos of what's really happening in Gaza. And we see that now with the purchase of TikTok. How interesting is the timing that the world's or the United States' most influential figure for people under the age of 35 is assassinated just 45 hours before, or 45 hours after a text message is sent saying he's no longer pro-Israel. Then, within 2 to 3 weeks of that, a purchase of the largest platform for people under the age of 30. And then the first thing that platform does for TikTok is get rid of the juice emoji. That's it. They got rid of the juice emoji. That's the big headline. The first thing that they did was they got rid of the emoji that people are using for Jewish people. Also interesting that apparently the Murdoch family was also involved in that. Now we'll have to dive deeper into who actually purchased TikTok in a later episode, but I do find the timing interesting nonetheless. So maybe it wasn't a lone wolf doing so because of his boyfriend that's pretending to be a woman. Oh, and he also conveniently wrote on the bullets. Oh, and the entire story doesn't make any sense at all, right? You stack up the timelines, which is not another thing that Candace Owens did beautifully, was actually stack up those timelines and find so many gaps within what was actually being put out by the FBI. Now, something that Nick Fuentes said, a very interesting figure, not one that I've really listened to at all. Never listened to a full anything of his. I've seen some clips pop up. Seems like he's very provocative in his approach, which is fine. But he did say something that was interesting about this that makes you think a little bit. He did say Charlie Kirk said he had no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause because a Jewish donor stopped giving him millions of dollars. What a coincidence. He had his great epiphany about Israel after they stopped paying him to shill. I think it's a little backwards in the approach there, because the only reason they pulled the funding was because he was no longer shilling. So that seems to be a somewhat disingenuous statement. He platformed Tucker Carlson. He put Dave Smith on the stage to debate and talk about how Israel is conducting a genocide. And then he publicly stated, I'm no longer going to be pro-Israel after the funding was pulled. And then he says, well, at that point, I'm just going to platform Candace too. Sounds a lot like he stopped shilling and then they pulled the funding. That seems to make more sense.